Derek Patrick, one of the better quarterbacks to ever come out of Ridgeview High School. He's going to share a story with you. All right, guys, please give me your attention.
I had so many chances. Like you guys, when I was your age, and we'd have someone come and talk to us about substance abuse, I said, that'll never be me. I'll never be that guy. I wish they would have told me, though, that because addiction ran in my family, that I was 40 more times likely to suffer from it. I wish they told me that 1 in 5 households is struggling with addiction. I wish they told me that I would have lost everything, because maybe I would have tried to prove that side of it wrong instead of worried about the athletic side. I was at a party one night, and the craziest thing happened. I had no idea what was about to happen that night would change my life forever. And I walked into a party. One of my buddies said, "Yo, Hatch, try this." Line, a white powdered substance on the table. I had no idea what it was. I said, "Nah, I don't do that, bro. I drink every now and then. I smoke every now and then. Not a big deal. I don't do that. I don't mess with the hard stuff." He said, "Come on, just try it. It won't kill you. It ain't gonna hurt you." And I had no idea that one line would turn into 4 years of a nightmare.
Thank you for being here today and your willingness to talk with us about Derek's story. A lot of people remember Derek as a star athlete, a star football player, but can you share a little bit about him off the field, what he was like off the field?
He was goofy. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. Derek was a goofy kid. He was funny. He had a great sense of humor. He was loving. He loved his mom. He loved his dad. He was just such a loving kind of kid. He was really lovable. And you wouldn't think that from the big, strong football player, but he was really a goofy, lovable, mushy kid that was just full of joy. Everywhere he went, he would light up a room. He was just a fun-loving person.
I love that. And for those who are not familiar with Derek's football career, he attended Ridgeview High School, is that right?
He did.
And he played quarterback and excelled as a high school athlete. In fact, I know he had one game where he passed for over 400 yards.
He did, yes. I remember a parent came up to me after the game and said, "Do you realize what he just did?" And I went, "No." But yeah, he did.
And he got the attention of several coaches at the next level, so he had many opportunities, scholarship opportunities from colleges and universities all over the country.
He did, yeah. He got several opportunities to go play football, and he did. He wanted to take it to the next level.
And so he ended up at the University of Arkansas his freshman year.
He did.
Then ended up transferring over to Charleston Southern University, where he started at quarterback. Is that right?
He started some of the games. He wasn't the only starter, but he did play a lot of the games, and he did well there. He was just getting really good there.
And so things were going well, as you mentioned, up until the day you received a phone call that kind of changed everything. And you said it started a 3-year nightmare. Do you mind describing what happened next?
Yeah, I was at work one day, and all of a sudden I get a random number on my phone, and something told me to answer that call. And it was the dean from his college. Mm-hmm. And that dean said that your son's being kicked out of college because he's using drugs. And I said, that can't be. Derek doesn't do drugs. He's an athlete. He loves his body. He takes care of himself. He can't possibly be doing drugs. And bad enough that he's getting kicked out of college.
Right.
But he did. And he was home that night. And the next morning, I immediately took him to an outpatient evaluation to find out what was wrong. And they suggested that Derek have treatment to take care of his drug abuse problem at the time. We didn't know how bad it was. Of course, he wasn't telling us how bad it was.
Right.
And he left there eventually and said, "I'm not doing this. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm fine." One thing led to the next, and he was doing a lot more. There were a lot of signs that I missed. Things like bruises and the paraphernalia that I would find, and I didn't know what it was. I know now what it was. The mood swings, the attitude, the stomach problems, the up and down, sleeping all day, just total change in character. He wasn't the same fun-loving Derek that I knew before. And then things started missing. Things were disappearing, and come to find out he was taking things to sell to buy his drugs. And it went from bad to worse. I was having to sleep with my purse next to me, and it was a it was a time when you can't possibly imagine that your own child, I mean, I would give him anything he wanted. You don't have to
Right.
take it from me.
Yeah.
And it was out of control, and that was how he would get his drugs.
And that wasn't the Derek you knew, obviously.
No, that was not my Derek. There's many times when I can refer to him as my Derek. This is my Derek. This is my Derek. This is his clothes and his lei that he got from, he brought this back from the University of Hawaii. Some of his football uniforms are in here, his jeans. I mean, this is the Derek that I knew and loved. The kid that took over his mind and his body was not anyone I knew. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him.
Yeah.
He was out of control.
And can you explain from the time that you were made aware of this struggle for him, what that looked like to the time that ultimately he passed?
So those are hard days to talk about, but I know it's important to talk about them.
Yes.
So when I got that call, and the very next morning I took him to this outpatient rehab center, I wanted to get him treatment. I turned into a mama bear of all mama bears. I was not going to sit back and do nothing, and I fought hard, tooth and nail, everything I could do, every opportunity I could give him, I wanted to give him. So when he left that rehab center walking down the street, my next step was to get him involved in an outpatient program that was suggested. So we had him enrolled in an IOP, intensive outpatient program. And he was doing well, I thought, until somebody told me that they called me and told me that he was out in the parking lot using drugs again with another member of the outpatient program. And they said I needed to come pick him up and I needed to take him to an inpatient rehab. He was that bad. And all of this time, I'm still struggling to understand how could it possibly be that bad? I mean, this is my sweet little boy. So when we get to this outpatient rehab center, he stayed there for a couple months and he came out clean and he was good. And I remember going to pick him up and I saw that look in his eyes again. I saw that face again that I knew he was clean, he was happy, he was normal, he was sorry. He was back to my Derek for a short time.
Yeah, and as we saw him sharing his story with some high school athletes, it seemed like he was doing well.
He was happy. He wanted to let other people know what he had been through and not make the same mistake. He realized his mistakes and what he had done wrong, and he finally woke up and realized how wrong he'd been, and he wanted to share that message. So he did go around and talk to a lot of people and wanted to get that message out there.
Yeah, and then he had another opportunity to play the sport that he loved.
He did, but before we went there, he relapsed after he recorded these videos to these kids, and he relapsed. He started hanging out with an old friend that he used to use with, thought he could get away with it, and come to find out they were using drugs again, and they were stealing things to get drug money. And they were both arrested, and they both went to jail, and that was about a year and a half of in and out of jail, in and out of a rehab program, in and out of trying to get sober, not sober, somebody pulling him this way, pulling him that way. And he actually did come clean again. He got better. He got over it. He got clean. He was happy. And he had an old coach call him. And his coach said, "Hey, I'm down here at a school in Orlando, Weber University." And that coach, Coach Kelly, said, "Why don't you come down here, play for me, finish up your college education, let's get your last year of college done, and there's a possibility for a coaching job," because Derek's dream was always to be a coach. So he went to this school and got enrolled and was doing great, finally on his way to another good opportunity, another good chance. And unfortunately, they found him dead in his dorm room, and he was alone. So he was that addicted that he would use alone. That's bad when you're that bad. It wasn't a party. It wasn't with friends. It was lock myself in my dorm room and I'm going to get high, because he didn't know any other way.
Right. To cope.
To cope.
To
He
deal
couldn't
with
handle
it.
it.
Yeah.
He was angry. He was sorry. He was embarrassed. He was humiliated, and he wanted to do better, but all of those feelings took over, and the only way he could handle those feelings was to get high.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Derek's death was caused by heroin that was laced with fentanyl. Is that right?
It is, yeah. In fact, he was in school down in Central Florida, and I learned later that he drove all the way back up here, back home, 3 hours away, bought the drugs, and then drove back down to school and used the drugs and died.
We're so sorry for your loss, and just want to say once again, thank you for sharing your story here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why not, guys? Why not take that step up? Just don't ever pick up. That's the one thing I'm going to try and tell you to do. Don't ever pick up, because not every person that smokes weed and drinks becomes a drug addict, but every person that's a drug addict started out by smoking weed and drinking beer. Anybody we can help, that's a win in our book. Like I said, we're just trying to save that one kid and that one family. So I thank y'all for letting me speak to you guys. I'm going to be watching y'all closely, and I can't wait to see what y'all do Friday night, and I appreciate it, fellas. Thank you.